again, you have to remember, what are the risks to your institution? Reputational risks, seizure asset risks. Again, start considering that. One other thing too that I also mentioned, throughout the last few months, guidance has been issued by the various regulatory agencies, FinCEN, as well as let's see, the FDIC, OCC, the NCOA, SEC, and the FRB. They're still publishing guidance. So review this publication. You need to determine, how does this affect my BSA program? Do I need to do something with the risk assessment? Do I need to create some kind of project? Because, you know, they say that FinCEN is going to change the SAR report again, and it's going to involve my IT department. It may involve my core system vendor. So, you know, start looking at, you know, what does this guidance mean to me? And then once you evaluate what the information is, communicate the information as well to your board of directors and management. Keep them informed too of what the regulatory agencies are issuing, so they're in the know. But also let your board and management know, this is how it affects our bank. This is how it affects our compliance program. And if it's so, this is what I'm doing to address this new guidance that has been issued. So some of the recent ones too, I'll start with the earliest. We all know that on April 15th, FFIEC revised their BSA AML exam and manual procedures. It really was nothing new. They did, however, emphasize risk-based approach for the regulators. So they kept saying that examiners are to take a risk-based approach when they examine financial institutions for their BSA exam. But that entails now relying on the financial institution's risk appetite statement and risk assessment. So how up to date and how well documented is your risk assessment? Do you utilize the qualitative and quantitative information, especially quantitative? They would like to see that you did a thorough review of the risk posed by your branch to properly create the controls, you know, for your program. Again, everything is risk-based approach. And there's a whole new chapter now that they created for the BSA officer to ensure, does the BSA officer have the authority to do the job? The resources are available, and that they're, you know, they're doing their job. So again, and they acknowledge expertise and knowledge of not just the BSA officer, but of their team as well. So that's part of the new review process. On August 3rd, FinCEN issued a new CDD FAQ. So nothing new there. It's a joint statement by everybody, by the regulatory agencies addressing the CDD. Basically, I think because a lot of institutions were saying that there's such a big burden placed on banks to conduct CDD. They finally removed, I think, the term enhanced due diligence and replaced it with a risk-based approach. Again, do you follow, you know, what's going on here? Everything is a risk-based approach. So consider risk-based approach. For example, it also covers the next one too on 821 on PEPs. It's a risk-based approach. Your customers, you know, categorize your customers, your low, high, medium risk customers. How well, you know, when do you monitor them? How do you monitor them? Everything is a risk-based approach. So again, just review the FAQs, determine, you know, is it in line with what you do, or are there any tweaks you need to make to your program? On 8/18, FinCEN also and the interagencies also address BSA enforcement actions. When would they institute a cease and desist order? So again, they wanted to emphasize the fact that just because you have a technical violation or they make a recommendation, that doesn't necessarily mean it's an automatic cease and desist. There will be recommendations made, of course, by the regulators if they find gaps in your program, but if it's not major enough, it won't result in a cease and desist order. Just know that if there's a major pillar violation, if there's a broken pillar, if training is broken, if monitoring for suspicious activity is broken, that could result in a cease and desist order. But again, too, they did want to state that it's a technical violation does not immediately jump to a cease and desist order. So I did mention, they also put out a guidance regarding politically exposed persons. How do you monitor, how do you apply due diligence on them? And it's a very good one. Again, it's a risk-based approach. I would say you might have a retired PEP that has open maybe a certificate of deposit for $10,000 at your institution. Do you still rate that account and that client as a high risk? No, because that's funds that are sitting there for 5 to 10 years untouched. Source of funds is probably, it's a low amount of funds. And where are they from? Are they from the UK versus Malta? So, again, it's risk-based approach to determine who gets the monitoring for being high risk and who's low. And then recently, 9/14, FinCEN did issue a final rule that does require institutions that are not regulated by a federal examiner, that they will need to apply now a full AML BSA program. In the past, certain agencies like an MSB, insurance company, certain loan and finance companies only had to maybe monitor for suspicious activity and file SARs or CTRs or the equivalent, but they were not responsible for CIP and other pillars of the BSA program, but now they are. So we know that MSBs, as an example, are regulated by the state only, not by a federal regulator. So they're now instituting that they also abide by a full BSA program following the USA Patriot Act, as well as beneficial ownership rules. So that's information that I encourage you to read. And as I stated in the previous slide, share this information with your board, as well as your management, as well as other employees. If it applies to certain lines of business, ensure that they're up to speed on what's coming down the pipeline. Okay.
So basically, we wanted to just summarize again for you the items that we discussed today, and that is train and communicate with your staff on cyber attacks, the new fraud schemes that are out there that have grown, legs and are running during this pandemic environment. Maintain your reach out to your employees that are working from home to ensure their safety, their well-being, their work product, their clean desk, and everything in between, even a happy birthday. Make sure that your BSA AML program is current and up to date, and that includes not just your policy, but your procedures, your risk assessment, your model that you're using, everything, to make sure that all the transactions are accounted for, everything speaks to each other, you've calibrated the system, restructure your team, so that if, as Liz said earlier, if CTRs are down, which they should be, you're cross-training them into doing maybe the old enhanced due diligence or new higher risk reviews or anything else that you may have changed with your program. And we can't stress enough the importance of keeping up to date with all the publications, the changes to the guidance, to DOJ enforcement actions or other enforcement actions. It is very critical to keep up with all of that so that you can take a look back at your own program to make sure that you don't have some of those gaps in your program that may have been cited. And lastly, and I guess we could have added one more thing, communicate all your issues with board and management, and document. Everything that you do, review, change, whatever you do, make sure you have adequate documentation, a paper trail of everything.
Right, if you don't document, it didn't happen. You have nothing to prove. And we also wanted to leave you with a whole page of resources available. It's everything that Radhika and I discussed, but FinCEN has their own coronavirus updates. The FBI does. We provided the DOJ's news site as well, so you can read up on all the PPP loans that they're indicting on. And FTC, where I discuss, FTC has been sending letters out to marketers, as well as they have a whole page too of all the different scams and schemes going on during the COVID times. A wealth of information there for you to share with your employees as well as your staff. And then everything we discussed here, the exam manual, all the guidances that have come out are here for you to also take a look at it at your leisure. So this concludes our program. Here's our contact information. If you do have any questions that you'd like to reach out to us on a personal level, we welcome that. We look forward to hearing from you. But we also would like to take this time to answer any additional questions that have may occurred during this session and respond to them with gusto for you as much as we can.
Thank you again for attending, and we look forward to hearing back from you.
And thank you again, everybody.
Have a great day and be safe.
Yes.